You're listening to Coffee and Culture on FM 103.7 and AM 1260. We are on KTRC out of Santa Fe, also streaming on santafe.com. And my name is Matthew Chase Daniel, and I'm your host for this show every other week. And today, the show, I'm going to have two different guests, both of whom are showing at Gallery Hojo in Albuquerque, with an opening coming up on August 8th from 5 to 7 p.m. And now I'm speaking with Julia Lambright, and the name of her show is called Light in the Desert. And it's a good title, Julia, because it is about, we were talking before we started recording, about how it's light, it's life, um, a lot of flowers, and sort of capturing the energy of the flowers. It feels like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but both visually in how flowers look, but also there's an expressiveness and a movement and a gesture in the work, and almost like not quite drips, but at first I thought there were like drips coming off the flowers, and then I looked closely, I'm like, no, these aren't drips, but these are um, the energy sort of beating up and pouring off the flowers, and there's movement and personality in a way. Is that how you see
Yes,
them?
I'm glad you catch on a movement and light and the florals. They have abstracted quality. And recently, well, I'm gardener for quite a bit, over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when I moved to United States over 20 years ago, I think because of gardening and planting and investigating soil and local plants, I learned to observe life and observe the way life behave in a certain condition. And so for me, desert is a land of survival, and it's a metaphor of certain personal observations that I'm expressing through more poetic language in my landscapes that are mixture of florals investigation I did with my own photography, using water, light, and flowers to spin and create slow motion, blur, and some references end up being waiting for a few years.
Yeah.
So this series that will be about 10 paintings in egg tempera and oils exploring the motion in the sky that I see and the abstraction formations that there's a word pareidolia that sort of reflecting on human ability to make an order and chaos, the shapes
Mm-hmm.
that can remind of something that we make sense or nonsense. So
Yeah.
I think that's an
Were you saying in the composition you're floating flowers or flower petals in water and then moving the water and then photographing that and then painting from those photographs sometimes?
yes, I do. I use them as a references and also to zoom out quite a bit because land is vast. You have to zoom out to sort of wait for recognition to see certain things that feel somewhat familiar to me in translation of low horizons. I'm noticing that there is a lot of low horizons in my recent work, and I think the emphasis on the sky and petals and clouds that may remind someone of faces or motifs or whatever it is. I really want to keep it abstracted or semi-abstracted, maybe more appropriate term. So imagination is getting involved in a human understanding of the process of reading of surface and going through the surface if possible.
Yeah. And in terms of landscape, I was reading a little bit in the press release that you grew up in, it described as humid forests of Soviet era Russia, and then coming to the desert, and at first feeling sort of exposed and vulnerable in this open space that felt like there's a lot of sky and a lot of emptiness in a certain way, and then learning to understand it and see it, and the way you're garden with it and embrace it. And was that talk a little bit about that sort of transition of landscape and of ways of seeing the world?
Yes, I learned to navigate from very tiny apartment with no balcony, no light. And so for me, I feel like exposed because the tiny apartment in the Soviet time, communal apartments, they are, I don't know if I can translate this in feet. Total square footage 14.6 square meters. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
nothing.
like 150 square feet, something like that. Yeah,
You do
very
my
tiny.
math. Yeah, I
Yeah,
have an excuse. I'm an artist, so I don't need to do my calculations. But I wasn't prepared for desert and for sky and for lack of color. And I realized the color came later on when when I feel in love with the land. When I first came, I as an immigrant, I didn't understand. I only knew Chile and lack of rains and
right. You didn't
nothing
see the
else.
color of the landscape at first.
No, I didn't. And I feel it's lifeless and I feel there's no beauty to it. It's heat. There's no color. And I don't know if this is, I think it's partially vision that got adjusted to this light.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, and appreciation of a certain tonality of color that come into conversation when you are getting inside studio. Because I'm not a plein air artist. I tried and it didn't
yeah,
work for me.
it's a different thing. Um,
Yes.
I grew up in forest in the East Coast in New England, and there
Uh-huh.
was big trees and colors and rich plant life and stuff. And when I first came to New Mexico, um, I was I felt very vulnerable too, and
Hmm.
didn't see it. And it's over now. It's been, I don't know, 30 or 40 years that I've been here. I've now when I go now it's home, and when I go back to those environments, I feel very closed in and very
Mm.
uncomfortable in a different way, and I feel comfortable here. So I think it's this sort of slow way of learning how to see. Another thing you were saying is that in something I read or saw is that when you first came here, language was difficult because you grew up speaking Russian and your
Mhm.
English wasn't as good as it is now, and that visual expressing yourself visually through painting, through imagery, was a way of speaking to the world.
Yes, 100%. Italians speak with the hands. I
Yeah.
found I was in my 30s when I go to community college here as a sort of free time and my navigation through Albuquerque and finding a way of speaking without talk directly. And for me, it was escape. I wasn't looking for social netting at this point. I was looking for just doing something I wanted as a child, my dream of being an artist. And with
Hmm.
certain limitations in my childhood, this is where I took my chance like a last one. And so for me, expressing through the line, navigation of materials, and trying to get vocabulary without my own vocabulary, my own symbols eventually was a way to talk.
Nice. And when you started, you were working in egg, just more exclusively in egg tempera. And oh, sorry, we have to go to a break. We'll be right back and talk more about this. My name is Matthew
That's
Chase
okay.
Daniel. I'm talking with Julia Lambright about her show Light in the Desert. There's an opening reception on Saturday, August 8th from 5 to 7 p.m. And it's at Gallery Hojo, which is at 2000 Bellama Northwest in Albuquerque. And you could go to galleryhojo.com to find out more. Hojo is Hozho, for those of you who aren't Navajo or don't know how to spell Hojo. We'll be right back. You're back listening to Coffee and Culture. I'm Matthew Chase Daniel talking with Julia Lambright about her upcoming show at Gallery Hojo in Albuquerque. Coffee and Culture broadcasts just after 2 p.m. on Saturdays and then repeated on Sundays on KTRC, which streams at santafe.com, or it's on FM radio at 103.7, AM radio on 1260, and then after that weekend it's up as a podcast, and you can find that either at my website, which is chasedaniel.com, or just look wherever you listen to podcasts at look for Coffee and Culture with Matthew Chase Daniel. So you in Albuquerque, you were a student at UNM, both for MFA and before that a BFA, and that's, I believe, where you met Suzanne Frick, who runs the gallery at Gallery Hojo. Is that correct?
That's correct. Suzanne and I know each other for over 15 years. She was my undergrad professor in art history. Like it was a big auditorium, and that's when we met. And our life ended up being crossing again. And then at the beginning of formation of Hojo Gallery, about 6 years ago now, I am represented by the gallery and working together since, I believe, 2021 now.
Yeah, she does good work there. She was on the show talking
Yes.
about a book about indigenous photography that she wrote, or that she co-wrote with a lot of photographers. It was a fantastic book. Um, anyway, so we were about to talk before the break about sort of the combination of materials. So there's a tradition in Europe and in Russia, especially, of iconography and religious icons using egg tempera. And that's something that you went back there, I believe, and you learned on your own, or I don't know, with other teachers, how to make the egg tempera from scratch, so to speak, and this sort of long process of preparing the surfaces with rabbit skin glue and gessos and all of that. And it feels like in this sort of modern age of everything is easy to get and quick, people try to do everything very quickly. You've chosen to do things in a way that's very artisanal and slow. And does that, talk about that, does that ground you in the process and sort of bring you in a different way than it would be if you bought a pre-stretched canvas and started?
Yeah, you hit the nail. It's a grounding process. It really is. And so when I got in a grad school, I got a couple grants that allow me to hire and work privately, go back to Russia and uh, relearn or learn from scratch. And I think this is going back to the same subject of light. The light that was dull for me here because I don't go in church while I am believing I'm spiritual, but it's it's a different spirituality. I don't feel obligated to go to the structure. I feel that my heart and my human behavior and my reception from nature is the part of my spirituality. So I reframe this concept. But at this time, when I was, I think it's 2011 back, I absolutely have a necessary need to go to canons and create sacred corner in my studio and practice iconography. I didn't even know what it's involved. I didn't know I have to do true gesso. I didn't have to use orbit sander to get in the dust. I didn't know I have to transport chalk and test chalk from all over the world, mix my pigments. I didn't know what it's mean. I just want to paint an icon so I can have a contact, the visual contact that I was searching for when I was first here. Because a lot of people who relocate to different country and to different culture end up being exposed also not only to the land and the cultural codes, but also to the time to themselves with a limitation of having friends or lack of friends and learning adapt in a new way. So that's probably echoing my concept of light in the desert adaptation of desert plants. They are survival with no rain almost, and
Yeah.
so I think this is all make whole circle for me to start with an icon, search for spiritual connection, find this long, slow, tedious practice of repeating, buffing my boards, layering things, figuring out how to combine materials, breaking rules, breaking formulas. So doing cooking 101 using candy thermometer to this very particular patient control, not control, but the patient, the patient that we need as a human being.
Hmm.
And for me, I think it's a very important key of survival. And it's definitely a teacher for me. The icons I found my teacher and my contemporary paintings, my children, per se.
Uh-huh. And you blend the two sometimes, right? You're doing
Yes, I
sort of the
do.
icon style and then going over it using oil paint or now pastel. Um, so it's sort
Yes.
of your own blend of all these things.
Yes, yes, I don't like to cook the same recipe of pasole.
Right.
I would screw with spices a little bit. And so,
Yeah.
yes, I like to use egg tempera as a foundation and sometimes use as a watercolor technique when I can control transparency of pigment. And if things work together, I like to leave it as it is. Occasionally, I will layer with oils. The pastel is my new discovery because it's again another old-fashioned media, but it's giving me a little bit more direct approach. So I'm stop making my own pigments. I rather have a more experience of practice, more direct.
Right.
So, but I feel like Matthew, it's all come together. Like when I was preparing meeting you, I was thinking about the whole circle.
Yeah. There's also this sort of circle of you have children, yeah? You have two
One,
children? One
one.
child? Yeah, I saw photos somewhere. And so your relationship with your mother, you were orphaned in Russia and had very little contact with your mother as a child. And now you're a mother with a child. And also the paintings are your children and your teachers and your parents. And I think that's a beautiful sort of, and your relationship to the flowers and the gardening, it all
Mhm.
has to do with this sort of web of life and this transition through generations of how we're parented or not parented, and sort of
Mhm.
the beauty and the pain of all of that as it moves through. And I think your work expresses that light and life and transitions. So
Yes, I think it's a very good analogy. Maybe it's come from experience eyes, but it also comes from me as I mature. Realization of important need to make small life succeed. It's easy to make things die or neglect it. You
right,
can bypass. But then you can make weak things strong and proud. And so I do know that when I first begin my exploration with the past, addressing my daughter personally, she was my model at my first series that I did as an undergrad for my honor thesis back to 2009. And it was a very difficult because I remember being a challenge at the group critique at university, and my professor would said, Julia, your work is really strong visually, but you need to defend and explain. And I was not ready. I was 30 plus year old. I wasn't ready to talk about the privacy of a matter and be exposed in a new way again and be undressed in a way from my DNA, my codes, and I didn't know much, nor I was ready to share with the public yet. And then I remember when I had my first exhibition as an undergrad, I sat after installation in a gallery on the floor and I look at the work that is my daughter facing me, but it's again abstracted and suggestive. And because I was doing photography through the steam glass then, so it's just was different way to get ahead of Photoshop because I don't know how to use Photoshop. And
Right.
so, and then I realized that was the first time when I feel healing coming through the exploration of every canvas was a page that
That's
sort of.
wonderful. We're out of time, so we have to
Okay.
go. But
All right.
everyone, please come and see Julia's work, Julia Lambright, Light in the Desert at Gallery Hojo. Thank you so much for spending the time.
Matthew, thank you. I will talk to you more. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.